Many public access stations seem comfortable with their obscure relationship with the public. Dedicated to their mission, they seem almost unconcerned with the public's awkward perceptions. But how much of the public's perception is framed by what they see in the mass media? Could underestimating the impact of this consistently negative portrayal be detrimental to the future of public access television?
There's a romantic comedy called The Ugly Truth, and the character played by Gerard Butler at the beginning of the movie has a cable access show called The Ugly Truth. It's a call-in show, and it's a relationship advice show. And on the show, he's crass, he's sexist, he gives terrible advice to the women who call in, he insults the callers. He basically does things that would never be allowed on network television.
Things about public access is, it's a person's it's one of the few last First Amendment rights a person has.
We're big fans of the freedom of speech, so people can say whatever they want to say, and we really just have to support them and try to help them make it as good as possible.
Wait a minute, JT, how does a kid your age get a show on television?
Easy, it's public access. Any jerk who wants a show can get one.
Public access provides the ultimate opportunity for free speech, yet it suffers from negative stereotypes. Is it because of the lack of editorial control and the democratic nature of public access? Or is it because almost every portrayal in the mass media is demeaning?
Swing!
Swing!
Tentpole! She's a babe.
She's magically babelicious.
She tested very high on the strokeability scale. Just like Wayne's World.
Every single time it's like, oh, what do you do? Oh, well, I manage public access station. They're like, oh, like Wayne's World? And the thing is like, yeah, like Wayne's World, that people can come in and do that. That's fine. That's their prerogative. But, it's also a lot more. So yeah, that's one of the great things about public access. Yeah, it can be a Wayne's World, but at the same time, if somebody puts in the time and effort, it can also be, NBC Nightly News. It's all how much work you want to put into it.
I don't blame the mass media for cable access perception among the public, but I think the mass media could do more to show that cable access is making a difference on the community level, because I think that's important as the world becomes, it's important for people to know what goes on next door and in their city and in their towns, and it's not something that the mass media does as much now. Smaller newspapers are struggling. There really aren't too many TV stations for small communities, so that's what we do. We would appreciate some support from the mass media for what we do, but I don't feel like they're out to get us necessarily.
I don't think it's, positive press and, spotlighting the better quality public access would be great. But, good press never really makes it in the news. You never hear about a public access center that did this community event or did that community event or, affected the community in a positive way. You always hear about the public access centers that, they aired the wrong program or, something that went wrong. You never hear about all the good stuff that public access does. So would it be nice if there was a show that spotlighted, like Wayne's World did, but a show that was a better quality or something that was more beneficial to the community? Yeah, that would be great. Is that going to happen? I don't think so. But I think it's every single public access center's job to create their own PR. Go out and market themselves and spotlight what they do.
No, I don't know that the mass media is paying much attention to what's happening at the community level, is honestly how I feel. I wish they did, And I think the way in which they would pay attention is if there were controversy. I think that that's very much what networks are attracted to. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of controversy at most cable access stations. Sometimes there is. There is a cable access station in Massachusetts which allowed one of its community members to produce a show that many people felt had hate speech against certain immigrant groups. And that's an issue that the mass media did cover because, and I could be mistaken, but a group that monitors hate speech learned about this show and brought it to the attention of the media, and then the media reported on it. So I think that's typically the interest that the mass media would take in cable access, is whenever the kind of free speech we foster is used to promote something controversial, to use nudity or racism or other things that are protected under the First Amendment, when those programs are broadcast, that becomes news for the mass media. Unfortunately, they don't care about all of the other broadcasting we do, but that's just the nature of mass media today. They're only really attracted to things that are controversial. So I think the mass media does pay attention to cable access, and they do realize the sort of freedoms that in theory we offer to people that come in from the community to produce shows, but they only really care when those shows cross a line and they become controversial. And that's disappointing for us because cable access stations are not about controversial programming. We do want to encourage people to speak their minds, but we don't want to court controversy in order to gain the attention of the mass media. So it's kind of a paradox. The mass media, for the most part, doesn't really care about us, and the only time they do care about us is when a community member does something that doesn't necessarily reflect what we all feel about cable access.
Thinking of things like Wayne's World and all these other massively produced and mass publicized movies and all other kinds of media that show public access in sort of a negative, dull, or crazy light, definitely I feel puts a big damper on what people may see in public access. It might even scare people to not go to their local public access station.
That's sort of the same thing about stereotypes, is that they don't come from nowhere. They always have a basis that's true. So that is kind of what access is. I know sometimes I'll flip through channels and I'll see someone extremely geeky or goofy on access, and I think that's the charm of it. I would consider us sort of like an elite group of people who understand community programming, we like people who are quirky, and that's just kind of the community that we are as public access.
But at the same time, whatever negative influence you get from it, you also get the positive influence of, there are those kids out there that do watch a Wayne's World or a show like that, and they're like, oh, well, maybe I can go down to the public access center and create a show of my own, which is great. We encourage that. So I think it's almost a little bit of both. Yeah, it has the negative aspect, but at the same time it does have a positive because it might interest some kids in coming and checking out what public access is about.
You're not hearing what I'm saying. Take a look around you, if you would. I mean, Suzanne, we're talking local cable station here.
It's important to discuss how the negative stereotypes propagated by the mass media impact public perception. Consistent stereotypes in the mass media that exaggerate public access have created a comical image of slackers, psychos, and misfits. How public access stations confront the impact of these perceptions could have a major influence over their relevance and survival.
I think the standards for broadcast television are extremely high because of responsibilities to advertisers. If people aren't watching, advertisers will withdraw. So the programming has to have a very polished look. Cable access is totally different. the meaning of programming here is to get people to come into our station and produce their own shows, to take courses, to get trained on the equipment, to take the initiative and to produce their own programming. And inevitably some of the programming will be of a lesser quality. But if you had someone intervening trying to raise the quality, you might restrict the ability of individuals in the community to produce just the kind of show that they envision. And very much that's what we want to do. We don't want that guiding editorial hand that you might have at a major newspaper or at a a network affiliate or with the broadcast networks. That goes against the idea of cable access, which is, again, really about having people come in and produce their own shows with their own vision. Maybe to get some help from people who work at the station, but not to guide them with any ideological slant or left-wing or right-wing leanings. We want people to come in, and if they have opinions, we want them to express their opinions without any sort of interference. And again, that's the sort of First Amendment rights that a cable access station can offer that maybe network affiliates or the broadcast networks or cable cannot offer. So there may be a trend in the future, hopefully, as the message gets controlled more and more on the networks, maybe cable access will become a forum for people to express opinions that they couldn't otherwise express on television.
I think you can do as much with public access as you can do with any other, big market TV studio. I mean, most public access centers now have the capabilities of, a high quality studio, high quality lighting, equipment, editing stations, and everything else. It all depends on, the people that are using the equipment and how motivated they are. Let it be volunteers or interns, community members, and you can create some really high quality programming. There is some public access programming that's syndicated all across the U.S. There's new shows, I think, that just popped up in Newton that are getting syndicated all throughout the state and the U.S. as well. It all depends on how much effort you put into a production. I think you're going to see a lot of public access centers slowly transform into kind of a community multimedia center that offer a variety of services instead of just a public access TV type of environment. So
I guess I would say that to the public that kind of make fun of access or portray it negatively, maybe they're just trying to be funny, maybe they just don't understand what access is.
Can't they just say, hey, yeah, public access does exist and it's fantastic? That's what mass media needs to do.
Wayne's World, party time, excellent! Okay.
Right, excellent.
Excellent. Woo! Okay, extreme close up. Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
Excellent.
Okay, excellent. Extreme close up. Okay, now.